Carlisle Hashem, and this is the Carlisle Hashem Show. And today we are talking about drugs, mental feelings. And here with us today are Dr. John A. Snyder, who is a psychologist in Philadelphia, but he's here often in Talbot County. He wrote a book called Overcoming Depression Without Drugs, and another book called Flying Lessons. This is the first book he wrote, Flying Lessons, The Psychology of Intimacy and Anxiety. Also with us today is David Mercier, who in 2012, last year, wrote a book called A Beautiful Medicine. And this year he won an award for that, the Nautilus Award, which is a coveted award that the Dalai Lama won. So, gentlemen, it's good to have you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, would you like to begin by telling us what are some key points in A Beautiful Medicine?
Sure. One of the main ideas is that our symptoms are messages. And any kind of discomfort, any kind of pain is actually here for a purpose. And the purpose is to alert us to some other kind of a problem. And so if we have a headache, if we have a bowel problem, if we have back pain, those sensations are pointing elsewhere. And so a lot of times what we do is we try to get rid of the symptom, which is sort of like turning off the smoke alarm when it goes off in the middle of the night. It's really not the problem, it's pointing to the problem. Another key idea is that the mind and body are very, very closely related. And there's an abundance of research now to show that it's almost an incontrovertible fact. There's so much evidence for this. And so in many situations, the symptoms that we're experiencing, whether they're emotional symptoms such as depression and anxiety, or they're physical symptoms like these symptoms I just mentioned, they're often pointing to unresolved issues in our lives. They're often pointing to unresolved emotions that need to be gotten rid of. So if we sort of reinterpret the meaning of symptoms, not so much as problems, but encouraging us to grow and to develop, to become healthier physically and to become healthier psychologically, then we have a whole different take on it. Now, symptoms are sometimes, and in many cases, pointing to a serious disease, and of course they need to be attended to medically in those situations. But in a huge number of situations, these symptoms really are just pointing to unresolved issues, psychological stresses that we need to learn and to grow from.
So, John, you have, let's say you have a patient who is under stress, anxious about losing his or her job, or anxious that their children won't grow up and be good citizens in this world, or whatever. So they have these feelings. What would you do with those feelings?
Well, I think there are two things about it. First of all, that we need to be careful that in terms of naming things that we actually are understanding enough. If a person is experiencing stress or anxiety, we need to be a little bit more careful about what that means. And obviously, anxiety means only one thing. It means that we're feeling vulnerable and something bad could happen. And that's basically an existential experience. We're actually there in our lives, but what happens is if we orient so much around security that we're avoiding any of that feeling, then when we feel it, we think something's wrong. But the truth of it is the vulnerability and the sense of something bad might happen is something to address. And there are obviously feelings. And the feelings that get pushed away or pushed down are what cause people to actually experience symptoms of depression. So that the overcoming depression without drugs is really about people getting used to experiencing feelings, particularly on the dark side of the human spectrum. Because it's in those feelings that people begin to start trying to avoid in some way.
And you both write, I think, very nicely in your books about feeling vulnerable, that you're going to a place that is an uncomfortable place, and yet it can be a good place. It can be a launching pad for better times.
Absolutely, and that's where the physical symptoms come in. A lot of times especially according to research by a doctor named John Sarno, what happens is that the reluctance to experience those painful emotions actually leads to the aggravation and sometimes the creation of physical symptoms. So in his line of thinking, the physical pains are often distractions. They're often ways in which they are obstructing our experience of that vulnerability and pain and
Well, and
sadness.
I think that ties into what the neurologists are actually much more clear about what's happening with the human brain than a lot of the pharmaceutical-oriented psychiatrists who go with a simple a kind of orientation that there's some kind of chemical imbalance of the brain which has never been established by anyone, and that creates a lot of problems. But the neurologists are saying that feelings are the background music of our lives. Feelings are the background music of our lives. Feelings in the key of joy and feelings in the key of pain. And if you try to eliminate the feelings in the key of pain, you live life in middle C. And what they're saying is so much of the pharmaceutical solution is to get people living in middle C. Now, some people are relieved by that, I suppose, but it's a sad thought about the human brain that it can be altered in such a way that people live in middle C. And I guess we see that around us a lot around us, people that have been medicated, in the nursing homes particularly. You see people walking around kind of zombie-like. They're not feeling much pain, but they're not feeling the joy that's possible in life. So that both David and I are really oriented about not doing something to ourselves that alters our ability to experience what we're capable of as healthy human beings. So that the issue is orienting around our health, not focusing on illness so much as if we focus around what's healthy about us. And healthy means experiencing feelings of real pain sometimes in terms of loss, or a parent losing a child, a man losing his job. All of these experiences in life mean that somebody is feeling a lot that needs to be supported. Crying in the experience of these feelings is absolutely essential. Big boys do need to cry. That we got talked out of that way back there. Every human being early experienced feelings of joy, feelings of pain in terms of feeling a sense of helplessness, a sense of hurt, a sense of fear. We all experienced those feelings when we were little. When we were little and we were feeling hurt, probably we had somebody who maybe moved toward us and held us, and we got past it, and then we were fine. Or we were feeling frustrated. We couldn't get the little toy unstuck from somewhere, and we were really in a bad place. Somebody came and just basically held us before they tried to fix the problem, and then helped us out of that. Or sat beside us in the night when we were scared. Now, what happened was we got to a place where we didn't allow ourselves to feel the pain when we were feeling hurt, or when we were feeling scared, or were feeling helpless. If we can help people basically to express the feelings that they feel in these basic life experiences, everybody gets well.
Well, David, you point to having to go down that far, if in fact whatever that level is, the D or the F in music, you have to go down that far in order to rise. And that, so going down there is actually a good thing.
Yeah, and it's exactly what John was saying. The interesting thing is that we've looked at this from we've come to the same conclusion from two very different professions, which actually have a lot more common than we think. But one of the things that I have seen repeatedly over the years is that in many situations, if a patient has say something like a back pain go away, in many situations, all the repressed emotions come to the surface. So it's what John was saying, when we suppressed it as a child or at any stage in our lives, they remain, they don't go away, they're still there in the cellar, and it's what Carl Jung called part of the shadow elements of the psyche. And So when it shows up as a physical symptom, we're actually blocked in our growth. And so when you engage with a healing modality that removes the symptom, in many situations I've seen people just start crying. I mean, they were doing pretty well at first, but then they get some acupuncture, now they're crying all the time, you know, for a week or two, because this is time to face music, so to speak.
I neglected to say that David is a acupuncturist, a life coach. He leads seminars on holistic medicine, and there are important things to mention. And I also would like to say that John is in Philadelphia, so we hope that one day he can join us here. But he is joining us here on television. But anyhow, John, walk us through a situation where someone might have, what kind of emotion, what kind of emotion, anger, for instance?
Yes, that's thank you, because that is the one that most misunderstood, even by a lot of psychology, and got people going in the wrong direction. The psychologists got into a thing that expressing anger was a good thing. I suppose if you are a soldier in Afghanistan and you're feeling scared and hurt and helpless, sitting down to cry is not probably a good thing to do. So mobilizing around one's anger to basically defend oneself is seen basically as a primitive response that we all have. However, getting angry in close relationships is disastrous. And it is always because one is feeling either one of these three feelings and then getting angry. It's a
What are those three feelings?
Hurt, scared, or helpless.
Okay.
Now these are words.
I would like to write them down.
Well, my clients have to write them down because they get tested on it. But hurt has a lot of like feeling unfairly treated. Fear has anxiety in it. Helplessness, frustrated, impotent. I mean, so we're talking about a sense of a feeling that is hard to use one word to capture. But you are never getting angry that you are not first feeling one or more of these feelings. Never happens. You are never getting angry unless you are first feeling one or more of these feelings.
And you say that anger is not a feeling.
It's not a feeling. It's a reaction to these feelings. It's a reactive stance to feeling hurt, scared, or helpless. In a close relationship, it is imperative that one identify the feeling that is behind the anger. And to be able to say to your partner, I just am feeling so hurt by whatever just happened, is preferable, certainly, to getting angry. You get angry, the other person is going to need to defend. They're going to get angry back, and before long, this thing escalates into, World War III. So what happens relationally is crucial in terms of our being able to identify what we're feeling behind the anger. We may first only understand that we're angry. But my clients understand they cannot get by with that. Because if you're getting angry, you've got to look at what's behind it. The road rage. Somebody scared you doing something there on the road and you got angry, or you felt vulnerable and in a sense helpless and you got angry. So there's always a feeling behind anger.
And there can be shame as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And humiliation.
Oh,
those
absolutely.
are really huge.
So the anger is a most misunderstood emotion. It is a reactive stance. We get angry. People actually, when they talk about anger, say, I lost it, which is exactly right. We kind of lost it when we got angry. We weren't in touch with ourselves in a way that we would actually like to be in touch with ourselves. So we lost it. So these are just important ways of reorienting to basically what our life experience is about. And this is where David and I are so close, that it's about a change in gestalt, a change in the way that we're actually seeing the problem. So that change means that we have a lot more option in terms of living really healthy, wonderful lives. So it's a gaining in perception that is important.
We need to take a break here, but when we come back, David, I would like you to talk about how your patients might go through 5 years of coming to you for help, seem to, rebound, get to that point where they're at B or A, and then maybe a couple years later they've got to come back for a retune. So if we could talk about that when you
Sure.
come back, that'd be great.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Hi, this is Carlisle Hashem again, and we are back again with David Mercier, an acupuncturist and author of The Beautiful Medicine, and Dr. John A. Snyder, who is the author of 2 books, and the most recent book is Overcoming Depression Without Drugs. So welcome, gentlemen, once again. David, you wanted to follow up with a comment that John made, so if you'd like to begin.
Sure. I think that there's a whole social and cultural aspect to what John was just saying, which is that there's nothing in our culture, or let me put it this way, there's very little in our culture that encourages us to go into the depths of our feelings. It's all about consumerism. It's about a very materialistic way. Nothing against materialism, but when it overrides our other deeper values, and I think what happens is it alienates us from these states of mind, these states of the heart that John is talking about. And we might even call it an alienation from the soul. So part of my work in helping people to get to that place is just to ask them what really truly matters to them. And if they are struggling in a relationship, a question I often ask is, if you knew that today was the last day that this person was going to be alive, what would you say to them? And it instantly puts people in an entirely different frame of mind. It's what I would call a state of wholeheartedness. And all of a sudden, the issues that they were angry about become irrelevant. They are completely outsized by what their deepest feelings are, their true values, and realizing that underneath all of this chatter, that they really do love this other person. So it's a question that I have found incredibly powerful in just cutting through the muck and the flack and getting to the heart and soul of the issues.
There's something else that you all brought up, and that's timing in terms of seeing a patient again, maybe, of how fast our culture, the speed in which we live, that we don't necessarily have that time to take, to just stop and see what it is, check in and see what's going on.
That's very true. I think we get.
And that actually supports the quick fix kind of orientation to drugs as the answer to emotional problems, Carly. I think that sense of the lack of patience in dealing with emotional distress. But I'm at this point working with psychiatrists who pay me for supervision to learn psychotherapy, because they are aware that a lot of times the antidepressant drugs simply do the same thing that depression is all about. It pushes down feelings. People are happier because they're living in middle C, I suppose, sometimes. The libido is affected by these drugs. This is not a side effect. This is an effect of the drugs. Everybody experiences a lowering of libido with it. Libido is life energy. It's not just sexual stuff. So it affects how the person is in life. But it's the quick fix. Now, when people basically want to recover from whatever these emotional experiences are, it does take some time. But these psychiatrists are loving the work, because they work with people 2 or 3 years with the drug. They're not getting anywhere. They ask a woman, what is it you're trying so hard not to feel? And it opens the floodgates of all this kind of stuff. And in 2 or 3 weeks, she's well. Now, does that mean that she won't get herself back in the same place probably if she's using the same habits of how she's orienting to her life or experience? If she's still in the same relationships with people that she's been disturbed by before? Well, yes, she's probably going to have to come back. But so that sense, and I certainly experience that with people with whom I work. I have a woman I'm working with now that I worked with her parents years ago and told her when she came in, I remember when her parents brought her in a cradle.
And that must have been traumatic.
So once one establishes relationships with people, yes, in a sense, therapy in that sense does not end. any more than it's things that you do. And people gain something, they may move away from it, they come back, they can gain some more. We're talking about life processes here. Everybody's in a process in terms of trying to become as completely who they are as they could be, and so that sort of struggle, we just try to get involved with people in terms of helping them become more the
David,
kind of person they enjoy being.
Excuse me, it's a whole different model. You know, the standard models are about fixing problems. Whereas what we're looking at is maximizing the potential that we've got, that we all have, physically, psychologically, and spiritually, to achieve higher and higher levels of functioning. So in that sense, you don't necessarily see a person, you don't see, you know, John or me just because something's wrong. You may want to, you know, improve your life in a variety of different ways. There's an old saying that in ancient China, the acupuncturists were paid only when their patients were well.
Wow.
And when they got sick, there was no payment. We don't know if that's true or not, but it actually points to this way of thinking. So for John and I think many of us, most of us in a holistic or integrative approach to medicine, it's a fundamental paradigm shift as to what are we doing here as practitioners. You know, we're not trying to fix problems. You know, we're trying to maximize the mind and body's capacity to self-correct and to self-organize.
And just to interrupt you again, the one thing that
Sure.
we are in total agreement about is health is stronger than illness. And if you orient around health, and you're much better off than orienting around any kind of illness that you have. The body is an amazing thing. The mind is an amazing thing in terms of overcoming and recovering from any kind of issues and problems. And the focus today is not enough about supporting that aspects of ourselves that can overcome all kinds of things. That's particularly about the emotional issues. In terms of whatever dark place we go, the emotional self, the whole self of the person can overcome whatever this distress is all about.
Well, this is kind of a loaded question, but you both are so astute, and you have patients that come in, and you must at a certain point realize that you've got someone here who is capable of so much, and what that will lead to, maybe you don't know, but you're helping taking them there.
Absolutely. I ask my 70-year-old patients, what's your 30-year plan?
I remember that with me, yeah.
With 80-year-old patients, what's your 20-year plan? If you think about it, what else would you plan for? You know, I plan to die when I'm 82. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But when you create a vision for what's possible, just having that vision alone has a therapeutic effect. You stop thinking, there's this unconscious thought in the back of the mind of people once they reach 60 or 70 that, well, we're on the downhill side of life. And you know, if you think about it, from 70 to 100, that's 30 years, or 60 to 90, that's 30 years. It's the same amount of time as from when you're 20 to 50. It's a huge amount of time. Human potential never really ends. And so what I encourage patients to do at any age is to have the long-term vision, and then to start thinking about what they can be doing in their lives with exercise, diet, and dealing with their emotions such that they are feeling as good as they can be.
And this is again where we're so similar, because and what my patients understand is that projection is everything. What you're picturing is more important than anything else. And so if you're picturing whatever would be ill health for you, you're going to live into that. So being able to picture how you'd like to feel, how you'd like to be, is so crucial in terms of experiencing that.
Well, because
clearly you're not going to experience something if you don't picture it. So the pictures become crucial, the projections of oneself.
Because I think when that happens, then that positive energy makes you go forward.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It affects your whole
Absolutely.
body, as David would say. I mean, to me, it just simply means that whatever shift occurs in terms of whatever dark place you were in is no longer there. That people live in the darkness is because they project it. If you project that this sadness is going to go on forever, of course you get into hopelessness. But hopelessness is a picture. You see,
It's not a feeling?
No, 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 it's not. Actually, there's a great deal of difference between feeling helpless and feeling hopeless.
Huh.
Feeling helpless, if you feel it, it will pass. I guarantee it. If you're feeling hopeless, as long as you're projecting something that would mean that you're feeling that way, you're going to keep feeling it. If I'll never get out of this. And 'cause that's what happens a lot of times, that people don't support themselves going into the dark places. Because they never, oh, look, I remember doing that myself. I remember some of the feelings that I needed to go into, and I'm thinking, well, I can't do it today because I got to work tomorrow. And I think, well, I could do it on the weekend, but I don't want to spoil my weekend. I think I will do it when I'm on vacation. I don't want to do it when I'm on vacation. But when I actually gave myself permission to going into some of the helplessness that I knew I was avoiding, I was actually reading a book about Constantine trying to find his place on the porch. So I'm trying to find my place in the house where I could actually entitle myself to this feeling. The only place I could find was actually in the corner of the closet in a fetal position.
I was thinking about that.
But when I got into that feeling of helplessness, and I cried, and it felt absolutely dreadful for a little bit. And I went through it, and I looked. This was only 15 or 20 minutes. It's like sex, man. It was over in no time.
And how old are you?
So it doesn't take long, but it's fearful. To go into the dark places is fearful. But it's amazing the kind of relief that one can feel. Now, all of it requires crying. I can't imagine how one could go into the helplessness one feels, the hurt that one feels, or the fear and anxiety that one feels, that one wouldn't cry. If
Does
you're
it,
not crying,
does it have to be tears, or can it just be sobbing?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I mean, it's not whether you actually it's actually being able to picture that that's where you are.
Okay.
And then you go there and you go into that and you come through. All feelings are transitory. That means they come and go. They come and go.
Yeah.
The only feelings that we have that we're stuck with are the ones we don't want to feel. We're stuck with those.
And I think a lot of times what happens is that there's this existential fear of losing oneself,
oh, absolutely.
Of destruction.
Absolutely.
It's almost like if I go to these deep, dark places, what will happen is that who I am, as I know myself, will be destroyed.
Oh, it was off to the funny farm for me, man. I thought they'd cart me off to the insane asylum. No, come on, it's fearful. It's a fearful.
It's a fearful place.
Yeah.
But I think what's helpful for people to understand is that when you go all the way to the bottom and you experience those tears, as John is saying, what happens is there is sort of a death, but it is the death of the old patterns of identity that have been holding us back. And so once they're destroyed in this catabolic experience, what can happen is a whole new way of being ourselves can come about. And so that's where the joy and the happiness and the aliveness can come about. So I think that the fear of going to these places is more than just a reluctance to experience difficulty. I think in the back of the mind, it is an existential issue, meaning we're afraid to die. We're afraid to go through that emotional death. So it's understandable that people are reluctant, but if they can be encouraged to have the courage to go into those places,
and anybody can do this. I think that's the thing, Carl, that has not. People don't understand. If there was this shift in attitude, one could do that with one's child. Child could do that with a parent. A person could do that with one's spouse or a friend.
Wouldn't that be beautiful if the child did it with a parent?
To support a person going into the feeling. But our culture is such that we push people away from those feelings. It scares us for people to go into these feelings. So the scaring of us means go to the pharmaceutical solution, because these feelings scare someone. They think the answer, of course, is some drug. And I think the issue is that we're not oriented toward, people are not oriented enough to understanding that what we need to do is support the person crying. And big boys don't cry. I mean, it's a huge thing for guys.
Well, we have so much more to talk about, and I wish we had time to do so, but I don't want to end on the note of fear. I want to end on a note that we have two people here who have guided us to perhaps a new place in feeling the feelings that we don't want to feel. And I thank you, David and John, for
Can I
joining us
say one
today.
thing before we close out? One
Okay.
quick thing. Why go to the dark side of feelings? In order to sing and to dance.
Mm.
And so we sing and dance. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.